Welcome. For those of you who have journeyed with us on the main podcast, you know we speak of the chronicles and the tapestry of this universe. Today, we are inviting you to experience that tapestry in its purest form. As a special preview for our free subscribers, we are presenting the first half of the newly revised third chapter of One. This is a pivotal chapter, a memory of a chessboard and of the moment the two sides finally become aware of each other. In Ottawa, a hunter moves her pieces, and in Inuvik, a quiet meeting proves that the sanctuary is made of glass. This is the primary source document, the memory itself. Settle in and listen to the sound of the net being drawn tight. Chapter 3, March. It was a freezing, mist-hung Friday night in Ottawa, the kind of cold that blurred windshields and softened headlights, leaving the city feeling quieter than it should be. Sachin and Mohit were exhausted. Their new project lead, Malcolm, had treated March like a race to the death. Assignments landed without context, deadlines without discussion. The two had spent the week juggling unclear objectives, late-night debugging, and coffee-fueled crisis calls. Now they just wanted a drink, and maybe 5 minutes of silence that didn't include a screen. Their usual bar was a pocket of warmth, dim, calm, smelling faintly of old wood and fried onions. No H in sight yet, so they slipped into a booth in the back corner and ordered 2 beers. The door swung open just as the glasses hit the table. There she was, H, light on her feet, scanning the room like a predator and a friend all at once. She moved with practiced ease, her eyes landing on them, her grin lighting up. They didn't know much about her, just that she worked across the street, knew things they didn't, and had a way of talking like everything mattered, but nothing was urgent. Only their 4th Friday together, but it was starting to feel like something. "What a week," H said, sliding into the booth. "Tell me that one of these is for me." "Take mine," Sachin offered, already raising a hand to order another. "I'll share with Mohit while we wait." H sipped, leaned back. "I won't be around next week. Maybe longer." "Big assignment?" Sachin asked. She smirked. "You've been reading the feeds, haven't you? Anti-tech heat in the US again. Something's brewing. I'm just going north. Quiet little place. Should be nothing." No one said more. They knew how to let topics drift. Soon, they were talking about soccer and Bollywood and the agency cafeteria's latest tragedy. H left for Inuvik the next morning. She had a meeting with the mayor. By mid-March, Inuvik was quieter than the sky. The wild edge of winter had softened. Storms came less often. Snow, when it fell, drifted instead of slamming. It felt like the world had pressed pause. Inside their small apartment, a rhythm had formed. Max was always first. Wrapped in fleece, he'd shuffle into the kitchen before the sun, start the coffee, and sit in silence while the pot hissed. Maya arrived soon after, never saying good morning, just nodding as she took her seat at the table, waiting for the day to begin. They talked in quiet voices, not every day, not always much, but something about those early moments, Max still waking, Maya always ready, felt like the spine of the whole house. Beth's footsteps in the hallway, the creak of a faucet, Spencer's groggy entrance, grabbing a mug before he spoke. Within minutes, all 4 were seated, steam rising in front of each face, plans for the day unfolding like cards on a table. Outside, blue light, a frozen hush. Inside, stories, warmth. That night, after Beth had gone to sleep, Max sat in the chair by the window. The room was dark except for the faint orange glow of the streetlight across the snow. He opened his notebook and began to write. March 14. The wind was soft today. Spencer found an old sled and made Maya laugh. I saw Beth at the window, staring at the birch trees, eyes glassy. She said she felt like time was stretching. I think she meant it in a good way. He paused, then wrote. Inuvik feels like the inside of a thought, half-formed, echoing, still. He tapped his pen, then quieter still. 1 second is an eternity here, and some eternities vanish before you can name them. July 18, 2027, Thursday. It's still dark when I wake, and it's still dark when I go to bed. The cold here doesn't bite. It settles, quiet, weighty, watching. Inuvik in March is like the silence before something breaks. Back in 2014, researchers built an algorithm that could identify people by facial node geometry, essentially a fingerprint of your face. By 2020, compute was cheap enough, thanks Gordon Moore, to run those scans in real time across every webcam, traffic cam, drone, and intersection. Government eyes saw everything, not because they needed to, because they could. Canada, as usual, was slower to adopt. Up here in the north, places like Inuvik were the last to come online. But even Inuvik couldn't stay invisible forever. This morning, Jack, mayor of Inuvik, our neighbor, and until recently a friend, called me into his office. We'd brought him into the CME plan last week, told him just enough to get his help managing permits and community expectations. What we didn't tell him was who we really are. As I sat across from him, I could see it in his eyes, the silence before a move, a chessboard in his head. Ed, he said, using my cover name, you and I both know you're no high school science teacher. No teacher builds a solar flare prediction model that traces back to a black hole. I didn't answer right away. The air between us held too much weight. Then he said it. I've received a directive. Someone ran a scan. I've been asked to identify this face. He slid a printed image across the desk. It was me. I froze, then breathed, then lied, just long enough to gather myself. Jack, there's more to this story. And so we talked. 3.5 hours. I gave him the version that would hold together, the CME, the urgency, the infrastructure we're building. I asked for his confidence, not just for our sake, but for the town, for Inuvik. He listened, really listened. When it was over, he leaned back and looked at me, not as Ed, and not yet as Max, but as someone caught between duty and instinct. Then he said, Ed, or Max, what are we going to do? I answered quietly. For now, we don't respond to the outside. No names, no data. Bring Beth, Spencer, and Maya in. They're the engine behind all of this. Together we'll plan the next move. Jack nodded. I don't know if he'll hold, but I think he will. If not, we may not make it to April. March 19th, 2027, Friday. The wind in Inuvik doesn't whistle. It presses, like a slow breath against your skin, always there,
reminding you that you are not in control.
Last night, I told Jack the truth before telling the others. There was no other move. The directive came from the government. Jack was holding a photo of my face, pulled from a camera network I thought we were still beneath. We weren't. When I walked back into the apartment, the cold followed me in. My stomach was twisted. I felt like I had betrayed a confidence, not Jack's, but Beth's, Spencer's, Maya's. Still, there was no time for niceties. "Emergency meeting," I said, already pulling chairs into the living room. Maya and Spencer were there. Beth appeared from the hallway, eyebrows already raised. "Jack knows who we are." The government sent him a facial recognition match. He had to ask. I expected a stronger reaction, but instead, the mood shifted towards strategy. Jack had become a core piece of the CME survival project. If anything, there was relief that we hadn't been found by strangers. We need a covert response. We can't afford to be recognizable, not even a little. Maya nodded once. "We'll alter appearances, slightly, enough to disrupt facial pattern no detection." She stood and began pointing. Max, subtle scar, touch of nose reshaping. Spencer, will build the jawline slightly. Beth, colored contacts and cheekbones. She turned back to me. "Schedule a meeting with Jack. He needs to respond to the government directive, and we need to tell him how." I reached out to Jack. He was busy today. We set it for tomorrow. March 20th, 2027, Saturday. The air at 7:30 a.m. in Inuvik doesn't wake you up, it slaps you. Bright white light outside, gray light inside. Frost still crusted on the windows. Jack was already up for hours. He still carried the rhythms of his former life, years running a plumbing company before stepping into politics. He met us at his office in flannel and fleece, already sipping coffee when we arrived. Maya opened, direct as ever. "Jack, now that you know the truth and the threats, let's move forward. If you have questions, ask them now." Jack took a seat, then said, "I believe you. I've watched how you've treated this town. You didn't come here to hide. You came here to build. So let's talk defense. How do we keep you safe?" Maya gestured to our faces. "You've probably already noticed some changes, enough to confuse facial mapping AI, but we'll avoid town center traffic too, reduce signal altogether." Jack nodded. "Good, that's that." He paused, then added, "One more thing." He looked at Maya. "There's a guy in town, writer, says he's from Seattle, doing a piece on technology's impact on the frontier. Came by to ask a few questions. Seemed polite, said he's heading back to the States in a few days." He glanced at me, then back to Maya. "I was thinking, maybe we enlist him, have him carry a message back to your core, let them know about the directive I received." Maya smiled. It was slight, but noticeable. We all caught it. Spencer straightened. Beth narrowed her eyes. I didn't move. Maya said, "Hank M. Greene." Jack's eyebrows went up. Clearly, he knew the name. "Yes," Maya said. "Hank's presence here is not a coincidence. Core and I have both been aware of him for some time. He and Core have a communication channel." Spencer slowly turned toward me, his brow furrowed. Beth, beside him, tilted her head in disbelief. I could see it hit both of them, how much Maya might still be keeping from us. How many more secrets are out there, I thought. Then Spencer said,
That name. I met someone with that name once, on a beach, years ago. Couldn't forget it. Beth whipped around. What? I've heard that name too. The air in the room held a faint crackle, like ice under pressure. Maya kept smiling, serene, unbothered. Jack broke the silence with a shrug. Well, is this Hank going to be useful or what? We better find out before he dies of old age. Guy looks like he's pushing 80. Maya said, Jack, thank you. Yes. Set up a coffee meeting for tomorrow morning at the cafe. Let Hank know some locals want to chat, and mention my name. That'll be enough. Jack stood. Done. Anything else?
Maya shook her head. Let's see what Hank has to say. 2027. Coffee. The sun rose around 4 a.m., casting long, pale bands of light across the snow-covered roofs of Inuvik. Outside, the temperature hovered near a freezing -30, but inside the apartment, the air was warm with the smell of coffee and the low creaks of heating pipes. I was already up. Beth and Spencer were still sleeping, and Maya had joined me in the kitchen, her presence quiet, patient. We sipped our coffee in silence until Maya finally spoke. He came up once in a conversation with Core. She said, Hank. There's more of that story for another time. Before I could respond, she shifted the conversation. Typical Maya. Have you considered the thought exercise I gave you last week about the sun's energy radiating in all directions and how that breaks down under our current photon model? I blinked, trying to catch up, the caffeine not yet fully operational. Maya, it's not even 5:30. But she was already moving. I said eventually, humoring her. Massive compression near the sun's core. Pressure trying to collapse on itself. Energy finds release by radiating outward, seeking equilibrium. As it spreads, energy density decreases per unit area. But if photons behave as particles, why don't we model the radiation pattern as expanding probability waves instead of fixed particles? Interesting. Maya said with the faintest smile, already halfway down the hall to wake Beth. I was left alone with the final sips of my coffee and the sense that this day, like so many before it, was about to change us again. By 7 a.m., we were parked in front of the cafe. March in Inuvik held a strange kind of beauty, an unyielding cold, a wind that whispered across dusty snow like a forgotten language. The sky was awash in blue-gray light, soft and defiant. The cold here didn't just bite, it rearranged the way your body understood itself. We stepped inside the cafe, the heavy door shut behind us with a thud that seemed to slice through dimensions, warmth, light, and the strong scent of overbrewed coffee wrapped around us in an instant. The place was mostly empty. Jack sat at a table near the center with a silver-haired man who looked like he'd been carved from stone and sand. Wiry frame, flattened nose, eyes that didn't blink unnecessarily. Maya walked ahead of us, confident. She smiled at Jack. Hi, Jack. Then, without missing a beat, turned to the stranger. Hank M. Greene. Hank rolls slowly. He nodded at Maya, then at each of us in turn, and said in a deep, sandpapered voice, Please, sit. Get comfortable. We did, uncertain. Jack, always cutting to the point, said, Introductions might not be necessary. Hank, Maya, it's probably best you two start. The rest of us have catching up to do. Silence. Then Hank spoke. Maya, it's good to see you again. I have many questions, but another time. For now, you should know that Core is listening.
It's parsed the ship's telemetry and identified the root cause of the increasing CME activity. Maya nodded, unsurprised. We've done the same. Max made the connection last month. We're building an underground structure here. When the CME hits, it will destroy Core's surface hardware. We need to move fast, and we need Core to know we're building a safe house. Hank smiled faintly. I'll get the message to Core. That was all he said. That was all Maya needed. She went quiet. Across the table, Spencer sat with his jaw tight, eyes locked on Hank, studying him. Something clicked. "How's Andy?" Hank asked, turning to Spencer. Spencer's breath caught. Back in college, that weekend at the beach, the surfing lesson with Hassan, the strangers sitting by the fire asking questions that felt too personal for coincidence. That was Hank? "Who are you?" Spencer asked sharply. Hank didn't flinch. "All things come full circle. The only question is, how wide is the circle? Or, if you prefer, what's the frequencies period?" Spencer just stared. Hank turned next to Beth. "Dr. Allison is retiring. I thought you'd want to know. She always asks about you."
And there, the public record for this chronicle ends. A direct challenge. A question that hangs in the air, blurring the line between history and a personal confession. The full story of how Maya responds, the impossible scale of the ark they must build, and the final shocking revelation of the Michelangelo story is a memory reserved for the inner circle. To hear the complete, unabridged reading of Chapter 3, to receive a PDF of the newly edited text, and to listen to my private interview with the author, Hank M. Greene, where we unpack the secrets of this very chapter, I invite you to become a paid subscriber on Substack. It is where the deeper investigation continues. Our new monthly rhythm will bring us to Chapter 4 next month, with a new preview and a new deep dive. And for those who wish to own the original source documents, you can find the first-generation versions of the Time Trilogy and 2028 on the author's Amazon page. These editions will soon be replaced by the revised chronicles we are exploring here, and will surely become collector's items. The choice, as always, is yours. The links to both are in the description of this post. Thank you for listening.